Well, good afternoon. This is the Sarabella. My name is Jennifer, and this is my podcast where we talk about all things dealing with highly sensitive people and autism, addiction, ADHD, mood disorders, schizophrenia, personality disorders, whatever is on the spectrum, as we say. And so today I have a really, really amazing guest, and I've been fortunate to be her friend for a minute. And I wanted to bring her in because she has definitely experienced a few of those that we talk about on a regular basis. And she is here to share a little bit of her story. So welcome, Sherry.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So I'm Sherry, and I will start with, addiction first. Addiction started with me from the time I was probably about 18, 19 years old. I lived in a very controlling environment, and so my father was really, really strict. And so I had to, when I was 18, I got kicked out because my curfew was 10 o'clock and I didn't think I needed to be home at 10 o'clock. And so from that point on, I just kind of just was selling my oats, if you will, kind of thing. I went wild, because I got to experience life, what that felt like, with his control and he just didn't trust in me, and so it always made me feel bad. I was kind of more on, I was more grounded than I wasn't, throughout my childhood. And I've always felt different. I never felt comfortable in my skin. I never, I don't know. I just always wanted to run. And, I also suffered from abandonment issues too. My mother abandoned me when I was 8 years old. Okay. She, at the time, I didn't realize how sick she was. My dad ended up cheating on my mom, and unfortunately I was there with that experience. Wow. I was I remember we had the blue station wagon, and I was in the back seat, and she rolled up on him at his girlfriend's house, and I remember her beating the shit out of him, pounding on his chest and everything. And
did you have siblings?
I did, yeah. But they were older, and I can just remember her driving home and saying, "God, please no. God, please no." And I remember we went back to the house. My dad followed us over, and I remember I don't know why I'm so emotional about it, but
it's painful.
But we got back to the house. They argued, and I remember them fighting back and forth out of anger. And, I was only 8 years old. So, and I remember my mom pushing me towards my dad and saying, "No, you take her." And my dad saying, "No, I don't want her, you take her." Oh, wow. And so I always struggled with that. And so anyways, I ended up with my mom, and she didn't take the divorce very well. She just, from that day that he left, she did too. She just immediately checked out. We ended up losing our power. I found out that she was gambling and doing all kinds of things. This is not until I was way older, but we ended up losing our power, our water, and we used to have to take the hose up to the next door neighbor's house to take showers. And then my dad, or my aunt, was the emergency contact at the time at the school, and my brother had threw a screwdriver at my eye, and I had a black eye. And so my aunt got in contact with my dad. My dad was in Hawaii at this time. He lived there, and said, "Hey, there's something going on with your daughter. You need to come back and get her." And somehow my mother found out, and then she hid me at somebody's house. Wow. And I was at an elementary school. And I remember them coming and get me out of class and taking me to the office. And then they kind of, it was detectives, and then they took me to Child Haven. And then from that point on, I was with my father. So, you know, in the grand scheme of things, as I gotten older, I realized that, you know, that's why my dad was probably very protective over me,
Yeah.
you know. So anyways, going back to my addiction, you know, I always struggled with, you know, I never, like I said, again, I was 8 years old, so I never understood why my mom, you know, left, you
Yeah.
know, I thought it was because of me.
Right.
And, it's a lot to wrap your head around when you're 8.
Yeah.
And I look at my kids, you know what I mean, today, and I'm like, I just could not fucking imagine, you know, abandoning my kids like that. So I just, like I said, I moved out and I went kind of haywire, and you know, I had my freedom, and that's how I got into drugs.
How old were you?
I was 18
Okay.
when I started, and I started with meth. And I
Wow.
remember, yeah, that was my
Jump right to it.
yeah. Well, I did weed too, but I mean, but that was my major one. And I remember, like, I was so scared to even try it, like, because I had friends that were doing it, and I
Yeah.
remember them going in the bathroom and sniffing it, and then coming out, and their eyes were all watery, and they're holding their nose and saying how bad it
Right.
hurts. I'm like, well, that
Yeah.
doesn't look like much fun at all. So, anyways, I went with a buddy who was selling it at the time, and ran into somebody that showed me how to eat it. You know, that you can take it in toilet paper and, you know, swallow it like a pill kind of thing. And that's kind of how I got started. And I got stuck on that for a couple years, and then I quit that. And
What did that do for you? I mean, because usually it's like you go all night or you're able to. I mean, what did it give you?
I felt like I was Superman. Exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, and I mean, I didn't really do much. I mean, it made me crazy. I was going nuts because all I would do is spend most of my time cleaning and playing cards, of course. And, you know, and at the time I was dating my daughter's dad too. We got into it together as well. I had started it before he did, but he was doing it when I met him too. So, and then I got pregnant, and that's kind of what, like, you know, made me stop doing that. So obviously, because I was pregnant, and so I didn't touch it. And then after I had my daughter, I think I dabbled in it a couple times, but it's really never my cup of tea because I like to eat, I like to sleep, and I didn't like the crazy from it, you know?
Yeah.
It was just a bit much. It brought out, I was just meaner than shit. And I was terrible to Sabrina's dad, and it brought out a lot of terrible things in me.
Were you aware at the time that you were awful?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was very much aware. You know, I cheated on him constantly. I treated him like dog shit if he didn't have my drugs, and I was just awful to him. You know, and so then we quit, and we stopped, and then I ended up, I stopped for a few years. Well, no, a couple years, because my daughter was 3 at the time. And then I ended up where I met somebody and where we lived in the apartment complex where they were doing it, and kind of got back into it a little bit, and started with the same shit. Anyways, we ended up splitting it apart, of course, because, you know, I was out of my living right mind, you know. And so then moving forward, you know, he ended up leaving me. He had enough of my crap, which, you know, I can't blame him. And I was very narcissistic, and just, you know, I lied, I cheated, I mean, you know, I didn't just cheat on him with strangers. I cheated on him with his friends, you know, and pretty ballsy about it too. I remember, like, at one point, like, you know, I cheated with one of his friends, and he was in the next room sleeping, and we were in the other room. You know, that's just how disrespectful I was.
But
you
at the
know?
time, did you feel like, I don't care about anybody? Like, I don't really
I
care if he
didn't.
hurts.
I didn't think it through.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you know, like he was the last thing on my mind. It was about my needs and what I was, you know, and my fix. And that guy ended up kind of getting attached to me too. And I'm like, well, this is never going to work anyways, because, you know, you're his friend, and, like, you know, we have a daughter together, and I can't, you know, and that, at that point, you know, I started thinking things through, you know, like, that's just never going to work. Like, it will never be comfortable for him to come get his daughter from us, you know what I mean, if we ended up together. So I knew it was pretty much dead in the water, you know.
Were you in love with him, or?
I actually did care for him a lot. But the thing is that so did, so did Scott, and they were really close. Like, they were bandmates, they played music together. And, and then, so that relationship ended. And then I moved in with a roommate, and then I tried to actually take my own life because I didn't know, like, what to do with myself. And so
were
then
you still using at that point?
I was, and I had to give my daughter up. And then that's the reason why I was like, man, I've just fucked myself, like big time. Because I couldn't take care of her. I didn't have a job, I was a junkie.
Yeah.
And so I had to give her up, and I gave her up for like a couple years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I lost her for a couple years. It was my choice. I mean, like, I wasn't, that's one thing about me, like with my kids, I will not drag them down in the gutter with me. You know what I mean? Like, if I have to if I need to save my ass, then I need to save my ass. I'm not going to make them suffer because I'm a fuck up kind of thing, you know.
That's how you saw yourself at the time.
So, and I was selfish at that time, so he took her, and because I couldn't afford to take care of her. And so then I got back on my feet. I stopped with with that drug. And then I was just drinking at the time. I wasn't, doing any drugs. And then I met my boy's dad. I was bartending. He was bartending, and I was a waitress at the time, and that's how we met. And we worked at the same bar. And we kind of hit it off, and started dating. And then actually, he was a player. Here comes my karma immediately after this relationship, after everything I did. And he was a player, and so I ended up pregnant. And I remember calling him because we were like pretty much done within the first month. And I remember calling him and telling him that I was pregnant. And that was, and I can just remember his words were like, like, yeah, that's, I mean, but I gave him the spiel. I'm like, you don't have to be involved, if you don't want to be. But he wasn't like that, he wanted a kid. And so, we tried. So we got together and we tried to make things work. And then he went right back to his ways, cheating and everything else. And so I spent most of my pregnancy with Joshua, a single mom at that point. And then when I had Joshua, then he came back into my life, and it was another, like year or so. And then he, right back out the door he went, same bullshit. And
were you using at all during this time, or?
I was not. No. I mean, I did ecstasy, but not like, I shouldn't say it like that, but yes, I used like ecstasy every once in a while, but nothing like
on a regular basis.
Nothing like on a regular basis.
What was your mental state? I mean, I know that you had said that.
I was tore up from the floor. I was just such a hot mess. But but I had a healthy baby boy, and so, and but I was a hot mess. And then after I had Joshua, that's when their dad had a bad accident, and he got prescribed Oxycontins. And so after I had my son, he was like, well, he goes, why don't you try one of these? And I didn't want to try it, and I didn't but he was like persistent. And so I did, you know what I mean? I finally did. And that was it. That was the love of my life right there, is opiates.
Yeah.
I loved opiates. And by the grace of God, thank God, I never got into heroin. Because I probably would love that too. I just loved how I felt. It gave me energy. When I first started using it, it didn't like make me tired or nodding out. It just gave me the energy, but I felt more relaxed and just, I don't know, like I just
more pleasure in life.
Yeah, just more pleasure. And so then, and then we split up, like I said. And it wasn't until like a year after my son turned a year old, and then he came back into my life. And then he immediately got me pregnant with my second son. He wanted another baby. I did not. And that was a roller coaster in itself because, like our relationship was fucked up and he just came back into the picture.
Right.
And he wanted another baby and just did not give a shit that I didn't, and so he just kind of did his thing. And of course, by the second time I was pregnant, and I didn't want my son at the time. Actually, I had an abortion, planned, but then he had gotten his mother involved in him, and the manipulation started with the whole church thing and the Bible thing, and I allowed somebody to make that choice for me, that I ended up keeping him. And it was, let me tell you, I was still hooked on opiates at the time. I was on methadones though.
Okay.
But I will make it clear that I was honest with my doctor and let her know. And she even told Adam, she said, listen, she goes, with her already being on that, and she goes, and the stress of her trying to get clean during this pregnancy, is probably better for her just to kind of stay on the methadone and get through this pregnancy. And so I did. And so that was a lot. I still have guilt for that. I have never thought I would become that mother that would do something like that. And I did. Everything that I said and judged on other people for doing that, I became that. And
that must have been so difficult.
it really was. And it was the worst pregnancy. And as soon as I had him, and that's exactly why I already knew how it was going to play out. As soon as I had him, he was off again. And
could you sense that he was getting ready to leave or gonna?
He was always like that. He always had one foot in and one foot out. And so anyways, I got through that, and I had my daughter back at this point too. By the way, I know I'm kind of skipping around, but I did have my daughter back at this point. I had gotten her back.
And how old was she at this point?
I got Sabrina back when she was 8.
Okay.
So it was 3 when she was with her dad, and then by the time she was 8, I got her back. And she would always come over and visit too. Like, we did not see each other, even though her dad tried to control that. But so I got her back, and that was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And
was it a fight to get her back, or was
no? He he had a hard time with her being autistic. I remember when she was little and how she was diagnosed. Kind of skipping around here, sorry, but so when she was diagnosed, Scott's mother, actually worked for the school district, and when she was 2, and she said, she goes, she's not up to par. She goes, you guys need to go get her tested because something is off with her. Like, she should be doing a lot more at the age of 2. And at the age of 2, she wasn't really saying a bunch of words. She can say mama, she can say daddy, but she was pointing, you know what I mean?
Were you guys aware of that too? Were you noticing?
No, because she was my first child. I had no idea, And so she ended up, his mother helped, God bless her. I thank God for grandparents because they have just been a blessing in all of this, seriously. And she recommended Child Find. And so we took her down to Child Find. and they did a bunch of testing and stuff like that on her, and they still were unable to detect like exactly what was going on with her. They,
Interesting.
because at that time it wasn't, autism wasn't around. I mean, this was 95,
Yeah.
well, a few years after, but, it just was, not very many people heard of it.
Yeah.
And so,
Isn't that crazy? Now it's like, I mean, it's so
yeah,
loud.
and now it's crazy. And it's, what's wild is that it goes from one end of the spectrum to the next, and they have strong points and weak points, and, and I'm very blessed, that we got her in as early as we did, because at the time she was 3.5, she was able to start school where they started working with her speech and other things. And this was still not diagnosed yet, though.
Wow.
And so then, but she had an IEP and stuff like that when she started kindergarten, and started from there. And they didn't detect it until the year 2006. And it wasn't even them who diagnosed them. It was my mom. I was calling my mom because they kept on, whenever we did the IEPs, they kept on suggesting medications for her. And I'm like, medications for what? You can't even tell me what she has. And I'm not just going to put my kid on medication without knowing what the diagnosis is here.
Good for you.
And so I was crying to my mom because I'm like, I just don't know what to do. I'm at my wit's end. They don't know, they don't understand what's going on with her. I don't understand what's going on with her. And my mom took it upon herself to just do some research. And so she ended up doing research and found all this stuff on autism. And so she sent me all that information. And I sat down and I read through everything. And I'm like, oh my God, this is my daughter.
Wow.
And so then I took it to her school and took it to the special ed teachers. And they said, yeah, we were kind of thinking that maybe she was on the spectrum. And then from that point on, the doors kind of opened, And I also have to say what a blessing it has been that the teachers took her under their wing too, and looked out for her.
Yeah.
And her teacher at the time, I will never forget her because she opened up so many doors for us. And her name was Brenda Geisinger. And so she helped me. She walked me through, because she told me that once Sabrina started middle school, that it was going to be, quite the ordeal, because with autism, they have a very rigid schedule.
Right.
And it has to stay that way.
Yeah.
And so, you're going from one class to 6 different classes. And so she told me, she helped me write out her IEP and making sure that the teachers followed that. And then I went and took a class so that I could learn how to advocate for her. Did I say that right?
Yeah.
And so, because, she told me, she goes, let me tell you something. When she starts getting into junior high and high school, she goes, they are going to pass her through and not even look. They do not care. She goes, you are going to have to be her voice and demand these things to get her through so she can learn.
Yeah.
And I remember them telling me too, when I sat down with them with the IEPs, about everything that she's never going to do, and
How encouraging.
so yeah, and just kind of get me into an acceptance. And but I refused to accept that.
Good for you.
And I learned how to advocate for her, and I was able to do that, and so we just did it bit by bit, and every year, sure as shit, it never failed, she ended up, failing miserably, but in her IEP, we had all the rules and regulations that they had to uphold on their part that they were not doing. And so I would have to call them out on it, and let me tell you, that little girl is 30 years old now, and they told me she probably wouldn't graduate with a normal diploma. She got into a magnet school. She was straight A's and B's and she graduated with a regular diploma.
That's so awesome.
And she's doing fabulous, you know.
Well,
And
our time has gone so fast.
I'm so sorry.
I'm going to have to, because there's so much more to you. And
I'm sorry.
no, don't. There's so many layers to you. But I want to, not that I directed it to be back to Sabrina, but that is so powerful, because what you said is like, you know, God gave you people in your life that saw your daughter, you know, at a time where it's invisible. And I think that's kind of why I started this podcast, is because my belief is that, you know, autism, like just that reward deficiency syndrome that we come into this life, the neurotransmitters, the brain that potentially did not form correctly is like the root, and that a lot of the things that happen out of that, the, you know, addiction, the ADHD, the high sensitivity, the, you know, borderline, you know, narcissistic, all of that comes from that. And I'm such a proponent because it's so invisible. And so I work in the counseling field, and so I have adults and children that have been missed.
Yeah.
You know, your daughter, I think, is a level 3, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure about level. I'm sorry, I don't know.
Yeah.
So
she probably is maybe even like a 2. But the whole thing is that, you know, you had people that came to support, to see, and that you push for it, and like you stood your ground to say what was right and what you already knew about your daughter, and weren't gonna kind of back down until you kind of saw it for yourself, or we're gonna, you know, they explained to you what was going on. And I can see just the pieces that you got in order to like come around your daughter and, you know, support her. And I guess that's, you know, what I'm trying to convey, that no matter what it is, like the genetic testing, the things that we just don't know when we have somebody that's coming in for an evaluation, that they're not guessing, but it's such a spectrum,
right.
you know, and such a variety. And we know that there are, you know, genetic components that go along with autism that at least can kind of start layering it to know. And sometimes you started seeing things. And I love that you said that when you read the articles and stuff that it matched, you know. I don't know if that gave you relief or.
It did. It did.
Yeah.
You know, it did. It absolutely did. Because part of the, you know, the reason why I was so upset is the unknown.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
How do you fix the unknown?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm very much like, okay, I need to understand this,
Yeah.
you know, in order to move forward.
And that's the depth of processing and your high sensitivity. So I'm going to have Sherry come back, because we are not finished yet. But I so appreciate you coming into sharing. Like, there's so much more, because I know you, and I'll definitely have you back and do the other half of the story. So
okay.
thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Awesome.